take you offline.
Oh,
What
I'm just wondering what area of the country Tyreek lives in.
Oh, Atlanta, Georgia.
So, are you seeing any movement down there of FEMA equipment or unusual military movement, or what's the general feeling of the people down there in the South? I mean, they've been pretty hard hit down there.
Well, yeah, mostly some of South Georgia. That's kind of not where I'm actually near a military base. I see I live near some railroads, and I see I don't know if y'all probably noticed the FEMA trains. I see them going into the base all the time. The feel of the people down here is like they feel good about what's going on. They don't really feel it here per se in Atlanta. The storms mostly hit Alabama, some of South Georgia and North Georgia. Didn't really hit the city area. But they are hiring police out the wazoo like it's no tomorrow. And people don't see, I mean, the state is crying broke all the time, and they're hiring police. I'm like, don't y'all see something wrong with this? They're like, no. I'm like, okay. But how could they be crying broke, but they're like, they put in I was on Craigslist looking for work or gigs to do. They got, like, ads recruiting cops from Virginia. I'm like, don't y'all see something wrong with this? Like, nope. I drink my fluoridated water, my radiated milk.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the call, Tyreek. You know what? You're absolutely right. And it's a sad state of affairs. John, get his information, will you?
Will do.
Thanks, buddy. Let's go to Rusty. Rusty, glad to have you on
Gentlemen,
the show.
how are you doing this evening?
Oh, fantabulous, my friend. Fantabulous.
Well, I wanted to thank you for the membership to Survivor Bay. I was actually going to sign up when I got back to Texas, and just hadn't done it up here. Going to do it when I get there. So, hey, 30 days free. I can handle perusing it a little bit before I buy in. Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about oil and gas since I'm in the industry.
Sure.
I believe, and Gwen's there, and I know Gwen. I've actually met Gwen. Actually, kind of stop by her house every so often when I'm driving through that area. We talk about oil, and one of the things to lower the price, and this is going to sound nuts, but the best thing to do to lower the price is to use it. Believe it or not, because as there's an increased demand, there will be an increased competition in the supply end of things, specifically the refining capabilities, and the more we use, the more infrastructure that's built, actually, the theory is the lower the price will go.
See, that's totally
theory.
opposite to the way I've been thinking.
Well, if you think about it, let's pretend that somebody comes along and invents a widget. Mm-hmm. And they're the only ones making the widget, and they're charging $500 for that widget. Everybody wants one because that widget slices, dices, chops, and does your dishes for you, okay? Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, along comes another enterprising young man, and he starts making the same widget, and he's selling them for $300. The price goes down. There's more demand, but there's more supply. There's a huge demand that causes that other person to make the same sort of widget. So now we've doubled production, and so on and so forth, and eventually the widget's down to $9.99, and they're selling it on midnight television. It's the same with just about any consumer product. As there's a demand, I'll take a case in point, stevia, which is the sugar, the sugar substitute that's natural.
Right.
When stevia first came out, man, you had to limit what you put in your coffee. You couldn't afford to drink it. Now, when I go in, there's a half a dozen companies making stevia, and it's cheaper than the Splenda and about the same price as sugar.
But does that?
So there's an increase.
Let me ask you this, Rusty. How does that apply to the oil companies now when the oil companies themselves have become just so big? It's almost like it's an oligarchy in a way. And then you've got the cartel known as OPEC that really is the driving force behind a lot of these prices. So How does that? How do you combat that?
Oil is one of the most extremely complicated products on the face of the earth. Because when you say the big oil, what a lot of people don't understand, a lot of it's little oil. A lot of it, especially in West Texas. I'm up in North Dakota now. I live in West Texas. I kind of travel back and forth every 2 weeks. But a lot of the oil drilling and the oil exploration and the oil companies and the owners of the oil rights and all that are small mom and pops. They may own 1 or 2 or 3 oil wells, 4 oil wells, 5 oil wells, something along that line. It may be a conglomeration of an investment firm out of New York, which is one of the companies I'm working for now. They own two big leases, and they lease drilling rigs to work on it, and the drilling rigs are a different company. They're a company that I work for. And then the drilling companies, they lease a lot of their stuff out, the water hauling and it's just a very complicated product. There is no such thing as one oil company owning the oil, the well, the drilling, everything. It's a conglomeration of companies. But yes, in general, probably half of the oil in this country is the larger oil companies. And yes, when you're talking about the cartels like OPEC and some of the big companies that I firmly believe are jury-rigging the prices of oil, along with the traders on the commodities market, government manipulation. The government can shut down drilling in certain parts, on the public lands. Mm-hmm. It is so complicated. It would take me 5 hours to explain the way the whole process works. I'm actually on the drilling end. We punch the holes. That's what my company does. We're actually we're bigger than a mom and pop now, but we're a domestic company. All we do is build our own drilling rigs, drill the holes, and move on to the next one. That's what my company does. But it's a very complicated process, and there is a lot of very weird things that go on in the oil industry. A lot of real odd bedfellows in it. Who would ever thought Texas Oil Man would get together with Saudi Arabian sheiks?
Right.
It's just very bizarre.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure, Gwen, go ahead.
We don't have very many refineries in the United States. Does that affect the price of our oil here?
Yeah, and a lot of that also that a lot of people don't realize, it's I've heard that the refining capabilities are at about 95%, but then I've also heard that we're at capacity. And, a couple more refineries would take that load off. But also a lot of the problem is environmental regulations. Every spring and every fall we have to change blends on our fuels by EPA regulations. They mix more of this and more of that to supposedly lower the pollution out in California, and California has to have a special blend. I believe Ohio is another one that has real crazy regulations. So these refineries every year have to shut down, flush their systems, and start back up with a new mixture in their fuel. And that is very, very costly because they not only have to flush the systems out, they actually have to flush the pipelines out too. And I don't know a whole lot about the refining end of things. I've been to a couple of refineries and been on tours, but I don't know it from the inside like I do the drilling industry. So I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's really, punching one oil well will run, I guesstimate, and I'm not privy to this info, but I'm going to guesstimate around $3 million to punch one hole. So, on that ends of things, these guys are taking a big risk when they're punching a hole, hoping that they're going to get their investment back. So, I understand there should be a reward for taking the risk. They're getting some pretty big rewards right now. But, when times are bad, they don't get as big a reward, too. So, it's just the whole process is very convoluted. It's very manipulated, very controlled. You got the government with their fingers in there. People don't realize, but about 40 cents on a gallon of gas goes to the government, and that's just in average. And that's not counting places like California and Ohio and Florida that have these huge taxes on top of it,
Right, and now that's not enough. Now that's not even enough. Now they're talking about taxing you by the mile because there's just not enough revenue.
I have another question, too, because if we reduce our use of oil so that we're not oil dependent and it all hits the fan and we're not able to import that oil, and we can't refine enough of it here,
that's not a problem.
That isn't going to be a resource.
But that's not a problem. The oil is here. I mean, I'm working up on the Bakken, which is, northern North Dakota and just a little bit of Montana.
But it has to be refined, doesn't it? It has to go through.
It's got to be refined. Yeah, the problem up here right now is infrastructure, but I'm telling you, it's coming. The infrastructure's coming here eventually, to get that. But you're right, the refining is part of the process that's,
But think about this too, though. I mean, strategically speaking, Rusty, it's smart to run the Middle East out of oil first, So here I am.
But no. See, that's not smart, though. I mean,
why is that?
In reality, well, think about this. They say the Bakken Shale right now has, at our current usage, with figuring in a general increase in usage that we're doing every year, there's enough just in this Bakken Shale to last 200 years. Do you believe that in 200 years we'll have some kind of an alternative energy source that's viable? I'm not talking, a few windmills up on the horizon. I mean an actual viable resource. I believe
you'd have to think so. Yeah, you'd have to think so.
But so when you say, well, it's smart to run them out of oil, look what it's cost us. I mean, just in manpower. I mean, the amount of young men and women who been whacked over there. I mean, gone over and died in the desert. The amount of treasure that we are dumping. I mean, look at Libya right now. Whether that's a war for oil or not, I don't know, and we can always conjecture on that. But I mean, they're popping those damn cruise missiles off at the cost of $150,000 a pop, and they're popping 10 a day.
Yep.
I mean, you think about that's $1.5 million a day. I mean, think about that. So no, I don't know if it is worth it or not to run them out of oil first.
No,
and to be honest with you, I'm not sure we can run them out of oil in our lifetimes.
No, I don't think so either. But I often think that I try to play these things in my head to try and figure out what the heck these I won't say the expletive, but what they're thinking. And that's the only thing I could come up with from a business perspective that may, let's get the oil to go up to $300-400 a barrel, and then all of a sudden, boom, the United States comes in, and now we're good. And now everybody's going to buy it from us. Ha, 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 ha. And that's all I can think.
And it's really not that. I mean, it is feasible that if we really put our backs into it and our minds into it, that we could be an oil exporting nation pretty easily, within probably 5 to 10 years, real easily. There's a lot of resources here. But, what a lot of folks also don't understand is in fact, our two biggest oil, where we import the oil from, the countries where we import the most oil from is Canada and Mexico. That's where the majority of our imported oil comes from, is Canada and Mexico. So, and I've talked about it. Oil price is the same in Europe per barrel that it is here. So, the best thing that again, going back to my theory, and it's just a theory, the more of it we use, the more of it that we would produce. And the more of it that we would produce, the theory is, the more that it would flood the market and the lower the price would go, because it's a worldwide global market. A widget sells for the same price here that it sells for in China, that it sells for in South Africa. It's the same price.
Well, Rusty, we're out of time, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah, but I appreciate the call for sure, and enjoy that Survivor Bay subscription, and you got to tell people what you think. And if it sucks, tell people. Give us some feedback. That's what
I will
give
feedback, and I will post it on my blog site too.
Oh, fantastic! Now, folks, Thursday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern is our next show, and our guest is going to be Shepard Ambellas from the Intel Hub. He's going to come on and chit chat with us a little bit and talk about current events. Until then, I'm Joe Joseph on behalf of my co-host John King and Gwen Caldwell. I hope you all have a pleasant evening. So we'll holler at you guys on Thursday. Take care.